hello, listener. Tucker calls me out at the very beginning of this episode, and I don't know what to do. You're just gonna have to wait for it.
And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called J.J. Meets World.
JJ, I need to confront you.
You're gonna confront me?
I'm going to confront you.
About a problem?
I'm going to confront you about something I've noticed you doing recently.
Yeah.
On social media.
Oh, okay.
You've been posting photos.
Yeah.
Very beautifully shot photos.
Oh, okay.
Of VHS tapes.
Yeah.
In thrift shops.
Uh-huh.
And you're making posts about how you just love VHS and how you just love going to thrift shops to buy VHS.
Yeah.
And I remember a time where you ridiculed me.
I sure did. And
for a practice that I am now incredibly happy to see that you have embraced. So the confrontation is really, brother, why did it take you so long to come around?
You know what? I believe that still at our nature, human beings are hunters and gatherers. And unfortunately, we no longer need to hunt. And I think some people use their career as a way to hunt. Like, I am hunting down that promotion and I'm doing everything I can to stalk and kill whomever is in my way to achieving that giant buckskin.
That's a really good point. I've actually never thought of it like that before.
Right?
That's a really good point.
And so I believe that right now we're in this, we were broken down during the pandemic to a point of where we realized, listen, there are base needs that we have to have met, right? Human beings found out that even if you're an introvert, you still need other human beings because they provide a service to you in some way, shape, or form. And so collections and collecting became something that got bigger and bigger and bigger.
Right.
And what I didn't understand was I thought you were just getting VHS tapes because you were like, oh, I'll watch these things and I'll enjoy them as I used to. And I'm like, dude, they're so easy. You can stream all of the Star Treks now and they're remastered like in 4K. But it is the hunt that I enjoy the most about this.
I'm nodding vigorously as he's talking.
And
you just can't hear it.
And there's something also kind of cathartic about visiting several places, knowing that you could leave completely empty-handed or find something else. I was over the moon that I was able to tell you about a place that you hadn't previously tape shopped.
Well, so I think previous podcast guest Natalie Deutsch had mentioned St. Vincent's at one point. And one point I did go there, but either they didn't have them at the time or I just totally overlooked them somehow, which it's hard for me to believe at the time. They only had DVDs I could find. And so I had written them off as, oh, they probably don't have tapes. But part of it is there's so many thrift shops in this town. You do have to, like, at some point do like a new canvassing of all of them to go, okay, who is currently offering tapes? Because some do and some don't, on and off throughout the seasons.
I've also begun to start reading about VHS tape collecting because, and Reddit, great source for it.
r/VHS. I am in the top 100 all-time posters.
Oh, good
on
for
that
you.
subreddit. I'm not gonna lie. I just posted about my CBS Fox RCA collection.
Oh, lovely.
Full photo spread.
I think that for you, one of the things that you enjoy about this is there's an aesthetic pleasure to it. And it doesn't surprise me that a filmmaker like yourself, someone who has an eye for those things, would appreciate that. In the same way that I'm sure someone like Wes Anderson has an entire wall of tapes
Right.
that are pleasing to his. Maybe he's got the FHE, the Family Home Entertainment brand one, and he's got all of the Fraggle Rock tapes.
Yeah, we all have on some level nostalgia towards some object from our childhood, and for me, this is just one of the top ones that like spurs memories and stuff. But yeah, also the physical object itself of the VHS tape. There's so many things about it that I do just kind of truly love as an object in and of itself. But that doesn't mean that any VHS tape I'll just keep. Like there are millions of them, right? I had to like really figure out what do I actually like and what am I just grabbing because I think I would want this as a collector and then finding out I don't actually want it.
So you're taking what I would call the Oregon Trail approach to this, which
Okay.
is when anybody plays the Oregon Trail game and you go hunting and you see a bear, you shoot the bear, and then you shoot the deer, and then you shoot a rabbit.
Oh.
But you know you can only carry 15
Yep.
pounds of meat. But we want to shoot everything. Again,
Yep.
that
Yes.
nature of hunting, right?
Yes.
Now, I'm the exact opposite, which is I took home 6 VHS tapes. And I left behind probably like 40 that I thought I had an initial like dopamine hit when I touched it. But then
Yeah.
I decided, you know what? Because I decorate like downstairs in my office, I've been using VHS tapes to decorate. And it started from you telling me about them and then deciding, you know, what'd be fun is to have a Christmas video section, right? Like, so it's Christmas videotapes, everything from Batman Returns to Gremlins to It's a Wonderful Life, White Christmas, Muppet Christmas Carol. And now I'm slowly but surely adding to my collection of things like John Candy tapes. And I will tell you this. This is the other. I've got 2 big problems with VHS collecting right now that I think need to be addressed. Number one is the way like I found what I considered kind of a holy grail, which was the completely remastered, like brand new artwork, Indiana Jones 1, 2, and 3, Raiders, Temple, Last Crusade, and they come in a box of their own that has independent art on that, but they used packing tape to kind of seal to make sure that you didn't take one tape out because you had to buy the whole set. And when I carefully removed the packing tape, it stripped some of the outside of, and what was a completely pristine, amazing box. And we need to be better stewards. Listen, thrift stores. You need to be a better steward 100%. Of these things because they've already been around for 30 years, and we need to just make sure that they'll be around for another 30 more.
You know who I think does actually a really, really good job is Savers.
Oh yeah.
I guess just they have a very small VHS selection, but when I do buy from there, the stickers are so easy to peel off, and it's whatever the coating is, it just doesn't damage them too much.
I know
usually.
I know that you've kind of been invited behind the curtain before at a thrift store to like look at like the stuff that's not on the shelf.
Oh
right?
no, I have not.
Oh okay. Well, I did.
I wish I had.
I talked about this on my show, so I had Wednesday off, and because I was having new carpet installed, and part of that was me being like, I'm gonna go and check out some thrift stores, see what I can do some VHS hunting. Because I think at one point you told me Tuesdays seem to be the reload the shelf.
There is a sort of a common folk wisdom in the collecting hobby. I don't know if there's real scientific data to support it, but that Tuesdays are a good day for a couple of reasons. One, people typically don't think to shop on Tuesdays. Like in Seinfeld, they say Tuesdays don't have a feel, right? It's just usually not a day you go. But most donations happen over the weekend, which means they had Monday to restock everything, which means by Tuesday, everything should be restocked. You could also do Monday at the same time. I have found, though, that you get the best results if you just kind of go every couple of days.
So on the Reddit RVHS, there's someone who put a tip out there who said, listen, thrift stores typically restock the most amount of stuff on the weekends because that's when they have people who've been court ordered to volunteer at these places. So they have the most hands on deck. So I went to both the Arc on 32nd Avenue and University in Fargo, and I did my mass organization.
I loved that.
at the
I just
32nd
visited
Avenue.
it yesterday. was awesome.
Is it still
It's
like
still there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I love it.
So I'm talking about it on air, and my co-host Amy Eiler is telling me like, this is ridiculous. I can't believe you did that. And I said, listen, it was a little bit of OCD, but also my video store days, because I wasn't going to settle with just having like grumpy old men, like 4 of them over here, and grumpier old men on the other side. I was like, I'm going to put them together, because if you are buying grumpy old men, you definitely are going to pick up grumpier old men. Same thing with Sister Act there.
Yep.
For whatever reason, so many copies of Hope floats, and I actually, I talked to someone just last night who has a theory about why there's so many Hope floats. So, but someone from the Ark reached out and said like, hey, listen, I'm the manager. You can come over and organize tapes whenever you want. If you'd ever like to, be the person who does that for us, like even just for fun, go for it. Because they got all this free publicity of,
Sure.
talking about this. So I think
That's
that there's,
amazing.
I think there's a world where I can go in there and be the tape czar.
I need to put you on the hunt for a case then.
Okay.
Because this is something that I have long suspected, but have not been able to prove. So let me just go, like, here are my tape hunting habits. Roughly twice a week, when I'm off work, if I have the time, I will, which usually means Fridays, and sometimes during the week if I can help it, like over lunch maybe, I'll hit up, I think 7 or 8 different thrift shops that I know typically keep VHS tapes on the shelf, right?
Uh-huh.
And so I'm seeing these shelves enough, like routinely, that I can kind of tell when they've been refreshed. Like, oh, hey, they've refreshed this. This is filled with new stuff before. And I will see what feels like, it feels like everyone gets their shelves refreshed sometimes, but from like the same source. It feels like there's one source of like VHS donation tapes that is then going, okay, we've got this big box of tapes today. Here's some for the ARC. Here's some for the DBR. Here's some for this. And it's like one person's collection gets split up because you see tapes at different spots.
And people will brand their tapes with, it'll say like Dawson they'll write their name on the side of it or something like that.
Right. But like tapes that look like they belong in a set. So I collect the CBS Fox gray, white spine. And there were like 5 James Bond titles just like that, spread out over 3 different thrift shops that aren't connected to each other that one day. And those tapes, you never see them. And they look like they belong together. And suddenly, like, ARC has 1, DBR has 2, second time around has 3. And it just makes me go, like, is there like one person who just donates tapes to everyone? And like, is there a central hub? Like, do these thrift shops like receive donations and then send tapes to like a hub, and that they are all sharing from, so that they get like mixed up that way?
Okay, so let me give you what I think is probably more. I doubt that there is a weird warehouse that's nondescript that all of the thrift stores show up at midnight on Saturday.
I want there to be one, because
get one
that's
of
ground
these,
zero.
2 of these, and 4 of these.
I want there to be one so bad because I want in on that action.
So what I think is more likely is that all of those tapes were donated to the same place, right? So let's say they all went to the Ark.
Yep.
And someone like yourself picked them up, but this person isn't necessarily collecting them. They're maybe watching them and then kind of acting like they're returning them, but they go to different thrift shops themselves. So like, let's say you watch that James Bond movie and you go, okay, I don't have a use for this anymore. So these 5 tapes, I'm going to go to the Boys Ranch today. So you donate those tapes because you don't want them anymore. And then they get kind of parceled out like that.
So you're actually like specific individuals that are in that system right now that are sort of leeching off the system. They have access to the donations. So they quick borrow the donation to watch the film.
Oh, no. I'm not talking about a worker. I'm talking about someone like yourself, like who goes out, and not a hunter. This is the gatherer who just needs to watch the tape,
I see.
watches it. So he buys all 5 of those at a thrift store, but he's varying the thrift stores he's going to, right? Mm-hmm. We're also assuming it's all guys. I've noticed on the RVHS, it is mostly men.
Here's a little more data to support that as well, actually.
Okay.
So... as I was gathering up tapes, and if I got to sort of a critical mass and I was like, this is ridiculous, I don't want, this big pile over here, then I listed on Facebook Marketplace. You usually sell it for like $80, right? Without fail, I've done this 5 times now. Without fail, the script plays out exactly the same. Okay, exactly the
Okay,
same. It's a different guy every single time, but it feels like I'm on the fucking Truman Show when it happens, right? Guy goes, "Hey, are those tapes still available?" "Yep." "Okay, I can stop by later today." "Awesome," right? I have them out in the garage. They pull up. They're my age, right? They look like me, dumpy, hairy white guy, right? Mm-hmm. And they say something to the effect of, "Yeah, I'm just really excited to show my kids like what VHS was, and I've been thinking about getting into collecting, and I don't know what my wife's gonna say, but but we'll see, I don't mean that to make like a sexist joke. I'm telling you what they tell me,
Sure,
what they all say to me,
and this has happened so many times that it's in your brain. You're assuming that the sixth time is going to be just the same.
Just the same, right? So they buy the tapes, they take them. Within 2 weeks, I see those tapes on the shelf at thrift shops that have just been totally donated back because they've got markings on them. People, like a lot of senior citizens, will use their return address stickers.
Yep, I've noticed that
and
too.
They'll put those on. There's a lot of tapes in this town from what is it? Lloyd and Janelle. Oh, I forgot the name of it. But at one point I was thinking about trying to collect for this one old couple.
I know what happened to them.
And that was something I wanted to bring up though, about what's really fun about collecting too, at the level that I'm at. And when I say level, I don't mean the height. I mean the depth that I've gone, right? When you decide, hey, there's a certain tape that sparks enough joy for me that I would love to collect doubles of it. Having tapes like that are in your collecting, what am I trying to say?
Like your holy grail, like you're like mounting a deer.
It's like what are you always hungry for?
Sure,
right?
okay.
I'm always hungry for pizza, right? So if
you're always going to buy a Jurassic Park on VHS.
But it also turns collecting into like a little mini side quest game, right? So think of like the South Park game where you have to collect all the Chin Pokemon.
Yep.
And it's like this little fun little thing. It just becomes a little side quest that you get to do. So even if you go to a bunch of shops and you don't find anything that knocks your socks off, maybe you find a couple of your side quests that are really fun to hold on to.
So when I play a video game, I am what they call a completionist, where I want to get every heart possible when it comes to Zelda. I want to do all of these things that allow it to be a complete game. And what's amazing is when you play a more modern game, it tells you the percentage that you've completed. And if you've ever played a game that got to like 96%, you go like, well, son of a bee, what am I missing on this thing? And I feel that way when it comes to my VHS tape collecting. So, for example, things that spark utter joy in me. I love the Indiana Jones franchise up until The Last Crusade, right? So I want to get the original VHS tapes plus the remastered box set I got was a huge coup for me. Huge coup. And the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, I don't know if they ever put them out, but I certainly want to see that as well. And I just want to get those little things to make my Jugger's showing me a picture. Current status of my CBS Fox RCA Columbia shelves. You've been upvoted 32 times on this. And somebody, B Dilla 810, nice.
You can swipe left on it because it's multiple photos.
Oh, it is?
Because it spans the whole wall.
Oh, look. Oh, my God. This Jesus of Nazareth tape is pretty intense.
That's a 3-banger.
Oh, my gosh. Lawrence of Arabia, La Bamba.
British Beatlemania.
You got Ishtar on there, too. One of the most worst reviewed films of all time.
That's one that if anytime I find it, I pick it up because I give it to Mike Schultz. He collects multiples of Ishtar. He also collects multiples of Romy and Michelle's high school reunion.
Nice.
I even got him someone's TV tape of it that I found.
Who taped it like off of
where it's in handwriting.
Yep.
Romy and Michelle's high school reunion.
My wife's grandmother, as a gift to them, she had HBO. And so she would just pop a VHS tape in her VCR and hit record and then send them like 4 tapes in the mail. And they would have like on each tape 8 hours worth of HBO. And so Jill tells me about this era where she goes, I have seen the first half of Legend a million times. I have no idea how it ends. I've never seen the ending because it stops, and by the time her grandma switches the tape out, it's the end credits. And I was like, that's kind of like this little glorious moment for you, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that it's like if you were able to... Let's say you walked into a house that nobody's been in since 2006. Okay. And the family disappeared.
Okay.
But you could turn on their TiVo and find out whatever they had banked on the TiVo. It would be like a neat little time capsule of that era. It'd be like, this family really loved the Osbournes.
I love finding old TV tapes because of the commercials, seeing the commercials from those times.
Oh, sure.
And if you ever want to check out my YouTube channel, Rewritten by Machine, I post old analog ephemera like that when I find it in the wild.
My sister-in-law also does the same thing. So she converts tapes for people like... you have old family movies and stuff like that, and so she converts tapes. And sometimes, for whatever reason, like they'll take a family movie that's like someone's Easter pageant and then tape like also like a television special or something on it. So it's a mixture of home movies and then stuff they taped off of TV. And she loves to put local commercials on there.
Yeah.
And we were
awesome.
just talking recently about the fact she goes like, you know what really dates an old commercial? It's not necessarily the outfits. It's not necessarily the style of glasses or hair, but the computers.
Yeah.
And so the monitors that are gigantic, the ones that highlight the fact that they're using computers now to be like, we've completely modernized our operation here at the insurance company. Now using, blah, 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 dot matrix IBM.
Every single time I see an old commercial like that, I think of clownpenis.fart.
Yep.
From SNL.
Which is the premise of it's an SNL commercial that it's about an investment company that didn't want to jump the gun and get on the internet. They wanted to make sure it was going to be something that stayed there. And unfortunately, by the time they got there was only one web address left, and it was clownpenis.fart. And so it's like, for sound financial advice, clownpenis.fart. For your child's education, clownpenis.fart. And it is without a doubt probably on the Mount Rushmore of their commercial parodies of all time, because it is that and like Old Glory Robot Insurance are, I think, written by the same person.
Right.
Just genius.
So what are you looking for, you as a collector, to VHS?
Oh, thank you for asking.
I want to know because there is an informal brotherhood that I belong to.
Oh, really?
Where we all help each other. And sisterhood if anyone else wants to join us of any gender.
I have 2 copies of Titanic on VHS for you.
Oh, thank you very much. That'd be great. I'll add you to the thank you note when I send it to
good.
Titanic
Fantastic.
97.
I also note this too. I also get oddly angry when I see that there's a dual. I know the tape to be a dual cassette tape, but there's only one on there.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, first of all, did some idiot buy only tape 1 or tape 2? And number 2, again, this is where we could curate this to be a little bit better. Like, we all know that My Fair Lady is a 2-tape set. Why are you only putting out tape 1?
But you're highlighting something I think that's a really important part of this hobby, which is that these used tapes, they tell a story in and of themselves.
Sure.
Like they really do, of like, either they remind you of, I remember watching this at a sleepover, or it's got the handwritings or markings up of whoever had it before, or if it was a library, or if it was a rental copy for Premiere Video, there's stickers on it. It's as an actual like physical object. I think they're interesting, and they were also basically my favorite toy growing up was VHS tape.
It just like how sometimes lilacs can spur memories in people. VHS tapes do the same thing. For example, when I posted that picture of me, and so to go back to the beginning, what I had done is I went to a thrift store and they just pile all the VHS tapes on these shelving units. So there's no rhyme or reason. The only thing is the clamshell Disney style ones are usually somehow separate a little bit, at least, from the regular tapes. And so what I did was I collected anything that they had there that was a double. So if they had at least 2 copies or more, I collected those and arranged those on a shelf a little bit. a lot of copies of Hope Floats, several copies of The Out of Towners, which I thought was weird. Father of the Bride Part 2, not Part 1. And it's weird because, I also have to go back to that. I forgot about that. Anyway, so I organize these things and I put I put them all together, and I feel like I had accomplished something. And one of the duels that they had was for a movie called October Sky, a Jake Gyllenhaal movie. And I posted this, and a friend of mine who I haven't talked to in a long time, probably one of the funniest people I've ever met in my life, Francisco Bayaki, sent me a message. He goes, "Do you remember when they took everyone at Discovery at like 8 o'clock in the morning and they showed us October Sky? Like, we got to go to the movie theater to watch October Sky. What was the educational value in that?" And I was like, that movie, just seeing the top of that movie sparked something in him that was really great. The other thing I wanted to mention to you, going back to the beginning of mine about two things, you can really tell the era when DVD was introduced. And this is why I say that. DVD gets introduced and VHS prices at that point plummet.
Yeah.
So no longer are you paying $20 suggested retail price for a VHS tape. You're probably paying like $10. And so that era meant that people who weren't adopting DVD or saw this as an opportunity to expand their home library 2-for-1 that they had before. And so it's no surprise that Hope Floats, for example, starring Sandra Bullock, Sandy B., that one is so popular because that was right when DVDs were coming out. And so if you had a DVD collection, you weren't buying Hope Floats, which means they're still printing 500,000 copies of Hope Floats, and now they need to bargain basement those things out. So there's a real era here where you can see that the technology's changing and people loaded up on these for their own home, and they just get dumped on the shelves. I noticed that the Sister Act movies follow suit. Now those are well within the VHS era, but I think when Sister Act came out, it was so huge. I remember at Take-Two Video, they had 2 full ceiling-to-floor shelves of Sister Act movies when it first came out. So they bought so many of those that, of course, there's going to be more of those in circulation than anything else. The Titanic one's another prime example of something that's going to have a lot in the market.
I've pulled up just the list on IMDb of the top selling VHS tapes of all time.
Okay.
And so, I mean, the absolute number one is The Lion King. I mean, actually, Disney takes up most of the space, like the top 15. Says it's Lion King at number 1, Aladdin number 2, and Snow White at number 3.
Oh boy.
So those three, 32 million, 30 million, and 28 million, respectively. After that, at number 4 is Titanic with 25 million copies sold, right? But if you think about it, that's times 2 because it's 2 VHS tapes in the sleeve. So if you can think of metric tonnage, it's twice, as much.
Oh, so much plastic was taken.
And then my boy Jurassic Park at number 5.
Yep.
So these are the tapes that you're going to see the most of, and they're really, really easy to collect multiple copies of. Which is part of the joke. However, for me in Jurassic Park, it's not an ironic collection. Like, I legitimately love that tape. But I would also, like, if you want a copy of Jurassic Park, I'll give you one. And I won't give you one of the crappy ones. I'll give you like a really, really good one.
Somebody in my office like a year and a half ago brought in maybe 20 VHS tapes, and Jurassic Park was one of them, and put them in the break room being like, hey, if anyone wants a tape. And I was like, yoink. Immediately I got it.
Yep.
So you would ask me what are the things I'm looking for.
Yeah, what are you
right?
looking for?
So what is my Ark of the Covenant, right?
I mean, in general, like, what are you collecting for? What would be if I saw it? So there are tapes. I do buy tapes that I'm like, this is a JJ tape.
Yep.
For the idea of having it part of like our eventual set for having a video version of the show and having a shelf of JJ VHS tapes. Right?
Now, how often do you encounter a Captain Ron tape?
It's actually been a very long time now.
Right, because people love that movie so much, they're not getting rid of it.
I think
in any
have
format.
7 or 8 copies.
That's nice. That's awesome.
But no, in all honesty, I think it's been 6 months since I've seen a copy of Captain Ron.
For my 26th birthday, Katie Lund gave me a copy of Captain Ron on VHS. That was her family's copy. So it says Lund like on the bottom of the tape in silver Sharpie.
Yeah.
Here are the things I'm looking for. So number 1, Back to the Future 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
Don't have any of those yet.
Okay.
And those are hard to find out there. I searched long and hard for Gremlins, and Gremlins was something that eventually E.J. Scott, who's a dude that I met years ago, was friggin' awesome. He sent me like his copy of Gremlins on VHS, and so I ended up getting that. But I don't see that one around anywhere.
Okay, so you said Gremlins and you said
Back to the Future.
Back to the Future.
I'm also looking for some of those 80s adventure movies from Joe Dante. Let's see, like what's the one with the 3 kids where they're in the spaceship? I can see the Explorers.
Oh,
that's one. I don't have Goonies, and I want the original Goonies, not the re-release Goonies that came out. You know, that old school like look on the VHS.
Yeah,
case.
that's the thing is there are so many tapes that are so ugly that it's like I don't want it on the shelf. I might love that movie. I don't want that tape on the shelf.
Bingo,
it's so
right?
Gross, yeah. So no, I totally hear you. So you're looking for more of a vintage or a retro look to it.
Yes, I don't have either of the Ghostbusters yet, and that one would be something that I'd add high to the list. Either Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, I've got 2 copies. So if anyone needs one of those, I'm more than willing to give that to you. But I am looking for Temple of Doom and Raiders of the Lost Ark. And the old school ones. I've got the yellow, like, you'll know what I mean. I've got the yellow case ones that were the remastered set I bought, but I'm looking for those old, like, very brown, tannish. In fact, it's kind of weird because it's sort of like a khaki color on some of those.
Sure. Yep. The patina or whatever.
Yes, correct.
I'm not sure how you frame that. Are any of these ones that you're looking to collect doubles of?
I mean, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so really, like, pick these up because then, like, because that's what I do for, like, especially some tapes that I'm like, hey, I don't want to collect doubles of it, but I want to make sure I have the best copy. So whenever I find it, I nab it, compare which is best, keep the best one, and then that other copy goes to the one that I'm going to sell.
I need National Lampoon's European Vacation and National Lampoon's Vegas Vacation. I've got Christmas, and I've got the original Vacation film set and ready to go. My Christmas collection is pretty good. I've got all of the major Christmas titles.
You've really inspired me thinking about the Christmas collection. Like, you know, I don't decorate at the holidays because I have 2 cats that would just absolutely destroy everything. But it would be lovely to have like a little, Christmas section that comes out just for maybe even the week of Christmas or something.
It really looks good.
Yeah.
I also think this, if anyone stumbles upon someone who like all of a sudden they're like, oh shit, why are there a bunch of laser discs here? I also started collecting laser discs because you can frame those in the same frames that you'd put like a vinyl disc in there. And so I've got the laser disc of Jurassic Park. I've got a bunch of laser discs, and so I'm looking to add to those. Muppet movies of any kind. So not only the full theatrical ones that they've got out there, so like the Muppet movie, and ideally we're talking about the original release, not the re-release where it's Kermit wearing a tuxedo playing a banjo. Not that one. But then also there were like one-offs, like Muppet Fairy Tales was a series that they had, the Muppet Show on VHS. Any of those I would gladly add to my collection. I've got Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas, but if you find another one out in the wild, I'd gladly have that. The Christmas Toy is one that I am looking. It's an old Jim Henson special that I would love to add there. My copy of The Labyrinth is all right, but not great. My copy of The Dark Crystal, okay, but not perfect. And so those are some other ones out there. On my adventures, I also check out 2 other things when I go into the thrift store. I check out the board game section just to see if there's anything that catches my eye, because years ago I started a collection of movie tie-in board games, and I've got probably like 20 or maybe even closer to 30 one-off board games where they're like, listen, we're just putting an IP and slapping it on the box, but really the game is garbage underneath. Including the Mad Magazine game, which actually is more fun than you'd imagine. But I also, some of them are missing pieces, and so if I can get doubles of some of those, so like the Muppet Show board game, I'm missing 2 of the character cards, and so I can, finish that off and get a full collection. But and then I also look at the toys just to see if they've got something that's a little more, back towards my era. Right. I am always searching for the I believe it's Kenner Ghostbusters Firehouse from the real Ghostbusters animated series that came out in the late 80s. It folds open. People have painstakingly remade the stickers. You can buy a full sticker set online to like go over in case pieces have washed off. But I've wanted those really bad. And I've seen 2 locally in Fargo, but it's with people like previous guest Ben Larson who know the value of it. So they're like $250.
Yep.
And I was like, I can't spend $250 on that. I want to walk into a thrift store and be like, oh, look, there's that thing.
Yeah.
I recently made money at the thrift store. And I think the New York Times just did a piece too about how it was really trying to guilt people. It's like you're stealing from the lower income bracket by buying things at thrift stores and reselling them online. And I was like, I'm not going to give you any attention on this article. But I went and in the toy section, they had a Teddy Roosevelt teddy bear that was the 100th anniversary of the teddy bear still in the packaging. And it had like a little like CD of like maybe a Teddy Roosevelt speech or something like that. And so I looked at it and I said, okay, so it has a Kmart retail sticker on it for $39.99. They wanted $5 for it. I said, I guarantee you it's still in the packaging. This is worth something out there, right? So I bought it for $5, got in the car, pulled up eBay, going for $100. So I listed it, sold it, made some money. So my VHS hunt has now paid for it. I feel like in the book Hatchet, when he first gets the moose and then he's got meat for days. So now I feel like when I come home and Jill's like, how much did you spend on those? It's like, it doesn't matter because I'm working off of the kill I had with my teddy bear.
Yeah. It depending on how deep you want to go in this hobby, I can show you my spreadsheets.
Spreadsheets?
Yeah. I have 2 massive spreadsheets that I have painstakingly designed that help. One is the tracker of everything I'm looking to get in my collection. So instead of even taking the time to tell you, hey, here's what I'm looking for, I can just go, hey, JJ, check out the spreadsheet anytime you want to know what it is I'm looking for and the status of them, like everything that I'm collecting, including what I believe is the most definitive list in existence that I'm aware of every title that belongs in the CBS Fox catalog and the RCA Tapes catalog with that specific series of printing on the side. I cannot find that list anywhere. I've had to compile it myself from like different sources or whatever. But also just like rankings of things, like different collections I'm trying to get. It's all very nicely spaced out. The other spreadsheet is for tracking your spending and collecting in and out for the year. So that's VHS, that's comic books, that's music, that's anything else like that. But I know I've actually sold a bunch of my stuff, and I've got this whole thing that breaks down, okay, this is what I got at this location for this much money, or this is who I sold this to for this much money. And I even track if people give me stuff for free so that I have a separate tracking of how many items are coming into my collection and how many items are leaving my collection. I will just have gotten rid of so many things that I thought, this is waste. This is not creating joy for me. This is just taking up space, and I want to get it out of here. And now I won't make the mistake of hoarding those things again.
So at the beginning of this podcast, you called me out, and justly so, for my comments about your VHS collecting. I'm going to tell you a truth that's going to double down on that. At one point, I saw on Facebook Marketplace you had listed you had put all of the tapes stacked on top of each other in your garage, which is, if you're going to sell VHS tapes, taking pictures of just the bins is not the way to go. You got to let people see what the inventory is, and then you got to tell them it says a lot. I'm not selling individual tapes. And I saw that, and I'm like, God damn it, Tucker. There's like 20 tapes on here that I want, but I'm not going to pay you $80 for the stuff that I don't want, so that I can just turn around and then be like, hey, who wants to buy some VHS tapes? And I thought to myself, but I've given him so much crap about this that I can't tell him, don't post the pictures until you let me come over and see what you're getting rid of, and I'll give you a Lincoln.
No, because that'll lessen the value of my ability to get rid of this massive pile. Like, that's the thing that I'm looking for.
You got to, you got to put some gems in there to make sure that it attracts people. For every Star Trek nemesis that's in there, you got to put in a Star Trek for the Voyage Home. For people to be like, yeah.
But I mean, I've priced it slightly. It's been different sizes, but there have been times where it broke down to like, 5 cents a tape at the price that I listed it at, depending on how large the size is. It's just like, there's got to be a buyer out there who goes, hey, I want that giant pile of tapes. And I'd gladly spend $80 on it.
Okay.
And they can always counter offer, right?
Oh yeah. You accept someone to come up and like, wheel and deal.
I've never put any verbiage that says like, this is firm. Don't even talk.
I know what I've got.
I know what I've got. I just put $80 because I'm like, man, it'd be nice to get $80 for this, right? Expecting someone and no one ever tries to negotiate.
Interesting. Because they're like, look at this fool.
Yep.
He's selling the trouble with angels.
I think what's happening is I'm finding buyers who are high on the idea of, oh my God, the nostalgia wave that my family's going to love this. And then they bring it home and their family does not love it. They're like, this is junk. We hate this stuff. Get it out of here.
So let's talk about the buyer out there who wants to get into VHS collecting but does not have the time for it, because it is a significant time suck.
Yeah.
Just the driving alone from place to place to place. And then when you get in there, even if you've got an accomplished eye, looking through the stacks can your eyes kind of start to like cross at one point, because you're looking at hundreds of tapes in some cases in a line, and then you go into the same, and then how can I say this without sounding like a total and complete dick? The other clientele who's shopping for VHS tapes can sometimes be a little off-putting. Whether it be by smell, by the fact that they feel that they have supreme ownership over the space. A woman pushed me out of the way when I was at the Boys and Girls Ranch thrift store in Moorhead. Pushed me. And I was like, lady, don't worry. I'm not going after ants on VHS, the Woody Allen animated film. You are good to go on that one. That's all yours.
I do get oddly possessive of showing up and seeing someone else at the VHS racks. And I say road ragey things in my head, right?
Like what?
I'm not going to say them here. Those are for the quiet, angry place, right? That's not
get your ass out of there.
out here. I wanted to remind myself to tell you as well, if you're looking for another location that is in dire need of a tape reorganization, getting their duplicates together, it would be St. Francis on First Avenue South.
Okay.
So that's one of the places I go to. Really nice folk there. They've got a whole back section that's VHS and stuff. And it is a madhouse.
It is there, and the problem is that is a one at a time space. I've been to that St. Francis one where if you try and get two people in there, you're touching butts all the time.
Yes, that was where I ran into Brent Brandt at.
Oh yeah.
By the way, Brent Brandt is looking for multiples of Die Hard and Rudy.
Oh
yeah.
Yeah.
So anytime you see
it's a nice
those,
little crimson color.
Pick those up for Brent Brandt.
Okay.
Pick up if you ever see Fargo. I pick that up for Jeff Knight.
Oh, okay.
I just let you know.
Just for his Fargo collection. You know what I've got in my VHS collection? It's the tape of Fargo that the Academy sent out as screeners, and I got that for helping Fargo actress Kristen Rudrud move from one apartment to the other. She gave me that as a gift.
That's actually a pretty sick gift.
I know, right? Yeah. And it's on it, for Academy Award screening purposes only. I'm sure it's got a watermark on it somewhere.
Here's one thing that we really should. You had asked, about your. I don't know if you were necessarily asking, but you were talking about someone who would like to collect but just doesn't have the time to do it, right?
I was gonna say, because it's a time suck. That's why buying a lot of 200 VHS tapes from you is perfect, because then they can just bring it to their garage and at their leisure go through it.
Yep.
So they'd pay a premium for that.
But I mean, it's even if you break it down to per tape, it's actually technically it's really cheap per tape. It's just a bulk of fucking tapes that you're going to deal with, which I've done as well. Like I've done it as a collector. There's a big pile of tapes. They're asking XYZ. I'm willing to pay to go through that and go through the experience.
Can I ask you a question? How do you give them to somebody? So I've seen you post pictures where it's like there's a tub. Do they get to keep the tub?
Yep. Whatever I've put them in, whatever container, it goes with that. Yep. So just take it with it. So I always have plenty of tubs. I always have plenty of boxes. So they'll be, you'll see exactly what you're buying in the listing, and then they'll be pretty much packed for you by the time you get there. You just got to pull up to my garage, and that's it.
If you have a still sealed copy, like manufacturer sealed copy of the movie Alien, on eBay it just went for like $2,800.
So did it sell for that, or did it list for that?
Sold for that.
It did sell for that. Okay, so like I don't have much data on what is or is not selling on eBay. I want to start tracking that, but because I actually don't do it for the monetary aspect of it, I just don't really pay attention to that sphere. But I do know it's a running joke in the community about people listing their Disney clamshells for millions of dollars.
Right, because they think they took this was put back in the vault and now I've got it all. They think because they've got the Little Mermaid with the penis tower on the front that they've got a gold mine on there. And what did you say the first three of the most made tapes of all time?
They were
most like
Disney clamshells. Yeah.
Disney clamshells. So I'm sorry, but your Aladdin clamshell tape is not worth as much as you want. And also, have you noticed that there's clearly a difference in who had a home library that was exposed to light and like maybe even the sun?
Yeah, they tell a story, right?
They do.
They tell
versus
a story.
the people who like clearly had like cabinet doors they shut because their clamshell is still bright white versus the yellow, or the houses that had smokers in them too.
Yep.
That has I have not taken a couple tapes because they reek so much of tobacco.
One of the things that it intrigues me but also pisses me off when I see it is called a cut box. Do you know what a cut box is? So a cut box is where they took the original like paper cover and cut it into its sides as individual pieces, and then glued that on or stuck it to like a plastic hard shell.
Oh, sure. So like a rental place would probably do
a rental
something
place
like
would
that.
do that. Maybe a library would do it, or someone who just thought this looks better. Like I prefer this look over
because they wanted
look.
it to be uniform,
Right, exactly.
And here's something that drives me bonkers, right? So clearly when you made a VHS tape and it came out, most of the time the poster art became the VHS cover art.
Yeah.
And that's not exclusive, but most of the time that's what you get. But you really got to show who you were in the spine and say, like, what are we going to do with this? So, for example, like the Ghostbusters one is part of what collection is that?
RCA's got it.
So it's like a red triangle outline and then big block white lettering on the side.
Yeah.
But it's not uniform. And that was something that would drive me nuts if I was looking at it in non-curated the way you have it, where all of those are together, but kind of mixed around everywhere, which is what you had at video rental stores.
Right.
To make matters worse, Warner Brothers, you can go straight to hell, because when you started making DVDs, you were like, we're not going to do the same DVD case that everyone else has. We're going to make it a cardboard case that's got this like plastic clamp that goes over the front. So my collections never fit perfectly right if I wanted to organize them by genre. That pissed me off. So luckily, eventually they gave up on it, but I'm like, God, screw you. You probably saved 2 cents per case, and that came out to, a savings of $50,000 in 1 year. And they're like, congratulations, you're a CEO. And he goes, all right, I'm gonna greenlit. We're gonna do a remake of Platoon. You're fired.
I don't know what the actual math is, but you have to assume that the ratio of media to its packaging went crazy with DVD, because you have this VHS tape and this little thin covering over the outside, and maybe that's saran wrapped, right? But in a DVD, you've got this little disc, but then the case is much, much bigger than the media itself. Blu-ray went a little bit more and everything else like that. And now, you don't even need a physical media.
It probably got offset by shipping costs, right? Because for every 10 VHS, you were fitting 15 DVD when you were shipping it out there. Yeah. And so, because I think that's one of the other big draws to DVD was that what weighed a metric ton in your home video collection now only weighs 15 pounds in your home DVD collection. One thing that I think I miss the most about this era where we've got streaming and even like later edition DVDs and Blu-rays I loved watching the beginning of a tape that had previews of other tapes, other movies that were part of either the studio or whoever was manufacturing the tape. Those previews are some of my favorites. There's an old Disney one that was kind of this supercut of Disney movies, and I can't remember the song that plays behind it, but it shows a clip from Bed Knobs and Broomsticks, and then it's a Herbie, a Herbie where he skips across the water. Yeah, right.
Magic, Walt Disney and you.
Right.
Someone just shared a link to that with me recently, Eric Ista. I'll find the link and we'll watch it together.
It's so good.
Yeah.
There's so much fun to it, and people might say, "My God, you two are bored. You need to get like a hobby. You need to go out and volunteer and do what you need to do." But I feel like we really are. We're providing a service for the hunters and the gatherers out there. Now, all of this being said, if I see you at a thrift store and you've got a copy of Back to the Future in your hand and you put it down to look at a piece of, I don't know, like a Hummel or a Precious Moment, I'm taking that tape. Because it is the wild goddamn West when you get inside some of these places. And I know that recently, like we talked in the last episode, how you were invited to speak in Grand Forks, and you made the rounds of the stores while you're up there. I have been following a bunch of people on Minneapolis's VHS. Like they've got a separate thing, like Minneapolis thrifting, and then they've got a subreddit underneath there. And there is a place in northern Minneapolis that they say is the Shangri-La of VHS tapes.
Really?
And so I think it's worthy of you and I maybe taking a trip up there.
Yeah, we
What's
should.
the most you've ever paid for a cassette? Because the other thing, too, is I've been to antique malls.
Right.
That, they've got a copy of Jurassic Park and they're like $9.
No. I mean, it would be like through eBay for tapes that you just cannot find.
Sure.
And it'd be like $15 for a tape.
But in the wild.
In the wild, no more than $1.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, if it gets to the $2 range, which some of the tapes at the Restore in Moorhead can go for that. Sometimes you just bite down on it, but rarely. I try to stick it. St. Francis does 10 cents a tape.
Yep.
So you get 10 for $1.
And depending on the day that you go, they also have, like, I bought my Indiana Jones collection at St. Francis, and it was 75% off all items in the store that day. And so I was like, cha-ching!
Yep, and I think
I would have paid $5 happily.
I don't know if all the ARCs do it. I know the ARC on University, typically on Fridays, all media is 50% off.
See? So you just got to know the right day to go out there and to call through. I also feel like...
But yeah, just like you said, though, I mean, if we run into each other in that moment, we're not friends.
No. Oh, God, no.
No.
In fact, I'm going to find a way to sabotage you.
Fucking throat.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. I will bury you under hope floats.
That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com, where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information.
Now, when I was VHS hunting, I had a weird thing because it was 90 degrees out, and I was worried the tapes were going to melt in my car.